SCR 4, concurrent resolution honoring Colonel Gail Seymour Halvorsen. Senator Henderson.
Senator Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got some special guests, including Colonel Halvorsen here today, and we would invite them to join us here on the Senate floor. Few episodes of history bring smiles and touch hearts as quickly as that of the candy bomber. Most of you are aware of Gail S. Halvorsen, who brought hope to needy children by dropping candy tied to tiny parachutes during the post-war Berlin airlift. Gail's roots in Utah run deep and broad, spanning 96 years. During his youth, living on the farm in rural Utah, Gail learned the value of hard work, sacrifice, charity, and the law of the harvest. During his high school years, the storm clouds of war were gathering in Europe and Asia. Gail qualified for a scholarship for pilot lessons through the Civilian Pilot Training Program, earning his private pilot wings at Brigham City Airport. Awaiting call-up into the Army Air Forces, Gail joined the Civil Air Patrol to sharpen his flying skills and to serve his community while he was a student at Utah State in Logan. In late 1942, the letter finally arrived ordering his activation and detailing him to military pilot training in Oklahoma. While hoping for an assignment to be a fighter pilot, Gail instead was sent to learn how to fly large cargo planes. He spent the remainder of the war flying critical personnel and equipment from the United States to Allied bases overseas. At the end of the war, Gail decided to remain in uniform and make a career flying for his country. During the uncertain days of the Cold War in 1948, the Soviets cut Berlin off from outside support in an attempt to subjugate the people of that war-torn city. The Americans, along with their allies, Great Britain and France, pledged to support the people of Berlin by flying in needed supplies to keep them alive. During one such airlift mission, Gail encountered a small group of children who impressed him with their earnest desire to remain free. Taking personal initiative and based on the resourcefulness learned during his youth in Utah, Gail devised a plan to use his candy ration to give hope to destitute children and make friends of former enemies. Candy tied to handkerchiefs became a symbol of American goodness and charity. Soon, most of Gail's flying colleagues, supported by confectioners back home in the States, joined him in dropping over 20 tons of candy to the children of Berlin. General Robert C. Oakes, former commander of U.S. Air Forces in Europe, said, quote, "Through his actions, Gail Halvorsen established a relationship between Americans and Germans that belies the animosities that existed at the end of World War II just a few years earlier," end quote. That relationship now serves as the foundation of the great friendship that exists between Germany and the United States to this day. President John Kennedy's speech entitled, "I am a Berliner," and the ultimate collapse of the sinister wall that divided Berlin for over 2 decades would be difficult to imagine were it not for the actions of the farm boy from Garland, Utah. In the many years since, Gail has continued to participate in humanitarian actions of charity and love, whether in Bosnia, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Micronesia, and even in Orem, Utah, as well as many other places. Gail has opened his doors, bridged divides, given hope, and displayed an honorable example of what it means to be a Utahn. At 96 years of age, he continues to serve with youth in the Civil Air Patrol, inspiring them to look higher and see farther. Dr. Robert Freeman, a professor of history at Brigham Young University, has said of Gail's exploits, quote, "This is history that matters," end quote. Let us not allow Gail Halvorsen's story to simply slip away into obscurity. By this chapter of his life, Gail has seen more of sunrises than he will see of sunsets. Now let us officially honor this man, representative of the great generation to which he belongs, and preserve the legacy of the Candy Bomber by enacting this concurrent resolution. Mr. President, I would like to welcome Gail and his family. This is Colonel James Stewart also as well. We've got others in the wings here. We're very happy to have them. We've got grandchildren up in the gallery watching, and this concludes my presentation of this resolution.
All right, any discussion to this resolution? I don't see any. Senator Henderson, so back to you for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we suspend the rules.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Under suspension of the rules, I move that Senate Concurrent Resolution 4, concurrent resolution honoring Colonel Gail Seymour Halvorsen, be considered read for the first, second, and third time and up for final passage.
Thank you. Roll call vote.
Senators Adams, Andrigg, Bramble, Buxton, Christensen, Tabakis, Davis, Dayton, Escamilla.
Senator Dayton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say what an honor it is to vote aye, and what an honor it is to have you and your family here. A great American hero. We are flattered by your presence, and it's nice to vote aye on this resolution.
Thank you. Senator Escamilla. Senator Fillmore. Harper. Hemmert. Senator Harper.
Senator Harper.
Thank you. We're very grateful for you and your service. My father was also in the Army Air Force, B-17, passed away 2 years ago, but he told wonderful stories, and it's just an honor to see you here, knowing that you and he shared the skies together. So thank you for your service. Aye.
Senator Hemmert. Henderson.
Aye.
Hilliard. Hinkins. Ibsen. Iwamoto. Knudsen. Maine. Milner. Senator Milner. Senator Okerlund. Shiazawa. Howard Stevenson. Jerry Stevenson.
Senator Stevenson.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to comment before voting. Mr. Halvorsen's story has been told worldwide, and one of the elements of that I think really needs to be noted here is that moment of decision when he saw the children through the fence and he realized he had a couple of pieces of chewing gum in his pocket. And in his mind he thought, if I give these two pieces of chewing gum, it may be, there might be fighting that occurs as a result of that. But he was influenced by the spirit of goodness and decided to take the risk anyway. And he was overwhelmed to see how they tore the gum into small pieces and shared it among as many children as they could. And that they even took the pieces of the wrapper and smelled it and tasted it, which indicates that if we were all to follow the example of children, there would be peace on earth. And that's, I'm so grateful that he followed his feelings of taking the risk of giving that gum to those children and exposing to all of the world that children are good at heart. I vote aye.
Senator Jerry Stevenson. Thatcher. Van Tassel. Vickers. Weiler. President Niederhauser.
Aye.
Thank you.
SCR 4, having received 28 yea votes, 0 nay votes, 1 being absent, passes and shall be sent to the House for their consideration. Congratulations. Thank you for being here today, Mr. Halvorsen. I'm going to recognize Senator Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. In order to do our part in preserving the legacy and memory of Colonel Gail Seymour Halvorsen, I move that we place the words of the resolution, SCR 4, on the pages of the Senate Journal.
Okay. Everybody got that motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Halvorsen, for your legacy. All right. I'm going to recognize Senator Okerlund for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we lift HCR 12, concurrent resolution.
11.
Oh, I'm sorry. HCR 11,